Now we're going to jump into the rules. So these are the official I9 Sports Youth Basketball rules. They can be found on Connect Team. If you haven't been able to locate them on Connect Team yet, because you are just brand new, we just got you in the app, whatever it might be. These are located in Knowledge Base. What you'll do is you'll click on Assets on the bottom of the app, just like with the forms. When you click on Assets, that brings up everything there is in the app. Courses, forms, schedule, time clock, all that stuff. Then you'll look for Knowledge Base, and you'll click in through there to get into the rules and practice plans. Then you'll be able to find the basketball rules. These are for the returners. These are the same rules from the spring. We have not changed them. So we'll be rolling with these rules. Any differences or any updates, I will let you know specifically. But for now, this is our planned rule book for the season. I'll let you know if anything changes. We have 3 different age groups that we utilize for basketball this fall. We have our Pee Wee age group, our junior age group, and our senior age group. The age groups for basketball run from 5 to 12, and the equipment that we utilize for each age group is based on that age group. So Pee Wees is 5 to 6 year olds. They will play 5v5. The hoops will be at 8 feet high. Now, whether it's a crank hoop, a facility manager adjusts it, or we put on attachable hoops, we will talk to the staff that have those different intricacies for their gyms. But that division should be playing at 8 feet. If for whatever reason you don't think they're playing at 8 feet, we need to do something about it. You need to communicate to me or our program manager and let us know so we can figure out the solution of what needs to happen. The junior division is 7 to 9 years old. They play at 9-foot hoops. Both of those 2 divisions use the same basketball, the 27.5s, aka the Micasa's 1008. So 1008. Those are the junior and Pee Wee balls. The senior balls are the Mikasa 1010s. Again, if you're taking notes, I would recommend you write that down. You'll notice at the venue as well. The balls are different sizes, obviously. But for the junior and Pee Wee division, they should be using the 27.5s. The juniors will play at 9 feet. Both Pee Wee and junior will have 4 teams in the gym at those times usually. They'll be playing full cross court. They won't play full court. They'll play the cross court instead of full court. So 2 games will be happening at once, which is why there'll be 2 staff in the venues at once. Senior is when we move to full court. They'll play the 28.5 basketballs. There'll be 10-foot hoops. Again, we're still playing 5-on-5. We're just at the full court. Now, as far as the timing goes for these programs, make sure that you look at your venue schedules on Connect Team when I link those at the start of the season, so that way you know what time your practice is and what time your game is. Pee Wee sessions are typically 30-minute practices and 30-minute games. We do 4-minute quarters, and we do like a sub break at the 3-minute mark of each quarter. So you'll do a 6-minute quarter at the 3-minute mark. You'll blow, like, you won't stop play for it. If it's an out of bounds, you'll stop at the out of bounds, a foul, whatever it might be. All right, subs, and then the teams will sub. It shouldn't be a long break. It should just be quick. All right, make sure you have your subs ready. That's what I always encourage our staff to do. Tell the coaches when the break is coming so they can have their subs ready. And so it's real quick. We don't want to lose too much time. It's a 30-minute game. If you do 6-minute quarters for 4 quarters, that's 24 minutes. That means you have 6 total minutes for a break at the first quarter, the break at halftime, and the break at the third quarter. That's 2 minutes at halftime and 1 minute at each of the quarters. If you follow along to the plan, it will be 6 minutes 1, 6 minutes 2, 6 minutes 1, 6 minutes. The game is done. And that's like an extra minute in there just for buffer time. So make sure we follow along the game plan. 9:30 a.m. is the start of game. We start at 9:30. The game's supposed to end at 10. We got to end at 10. All right, so make sure you're on your schedule. Junior session is where we move from the hour time block to the hour 15-minute time block, and we'll go with a 35-minute practice and a 40-minute game. We will actually have that same format for senior as well. 8-minute quarters instead of 6-minute quarters, and we'll do the break at the 4-minute mark of each quarter. So again, 8 times 4 is 32. So a couple minutes for the break at halftime, a minute or so at the first quarter, a minute or so at the third quarter, And at that point, we've pretty much filled in the whole game time. Should be a 40-minute game. If the game starts at 9:10, it needs to be done at 9:50. Okay? So keep that in mind. That is the session format. Any question there about the quick reference of our divisions or the session format? Zach, question.
Yeah, so I'm just here to clarify. Is there a break to sub players in the fourth quarter?
Yes. So in the fourth, each quarter should have that real quick at the 4-minute mark break. Like a sub break at the 4-minute mark of each quarter. So first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter. The minute break in between quarters is just the end of the quarter. So the first quarter ends, blow the whistle, end of the quarter, everybody grab water. So everybody goes, grabs water, literally 45, 60 seconds. Then they're back on the court. Then we start the second quarter, vice versa, all the way through the line. But yes, in the fourth quarter, we'll still do that 4-minute mark substitution.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Next, we'll jump into the players' equipment. Every player is given a reversible jersey on opening day. On the coach check-in sheet and their own schedule, our coach check-in sheet will have it in great detail. It'll have who the home team is, who the away team is, what color jersey each team is, what practice court area they're on, what court they're on for their game, what time their practice starts, what time their game starts, as well as the sportsmanship value of the day. Make sure to check the coach check-in sheets for your court so you know what's happening. Make sure the players are wearing the right color jerseys. We don't want to get that confused when you guys are filling out the notebooks and keeping score. So make sure they're wearing their jerseys correctly. And then always try to have them tuck in their jerseys, okay? Some kids, these jerseys will swallow them up. It'll look like they're wearing a dress. Encourage them to tuck in their jerseys. Basketball play, you guys, everybody here, I think, has played basketball at a recreational to competitive level, right? You tuck in your basketball jersey. That's how basketball works. This is their introduction to that, right? So when you're out there, encourage them to tuck in their jersey. Encourage them to look like basketball players, right? That's what we're trying to do. That's why we hire basketball-specific staff to run basketball, because you guys have done it. You guys have played it. You guys know how basketball works. So make sure that they're tucking in their jerseys. Mouth guards are recommended, but not required. We require them for other sports, but not for basketball. So if they want to wear mouth guards, they're more than welcome to. And then a couple just logistics on the referee part. One ref will ref each game. So if me and Zach are stationed at Loudoun Country Day School, we'll both be working during practice, moving around, bouncing in with different teams. Once the game starts, Zach will take one game and I will take the other game. Make sure to communicate as a staff who's covering what game. If you are a strong ref and you know that we have a problem team there and we've communicated about it, or you know that there are some difficult teams at your program, do not shy away from reffing that game, okay? I don't want to hear that you are a vet, you've been here for 3 seasons, and the new guy who's been here for 2 weeks, you put him on the toughest game of the day because you knew it was going to be a tough game. You didn't want to be out there, right? Take the lead. I want to see leadership when we're out there. So when we're communicating who's covering what game, if you know there's a difficult game, take that initiative. Take that step forward, right? We want people to push themselves to be better. That's why we have tenure raises. That's why we try to keep staff around. That's why we try to build up our staff and move them into leadership positions and give more responsibility. So keep that in mind. Referees will call and briefly explain all rule infractions. So when things happen on the court, take those coachable moments and use them. Referees should avoid interfering with the course of play, but you are considered a part of the court. So if the ball hits you, that doesn't mean the ball stops. It's just a part of the game. More coaching of the rules should be provided at the younger age groups. What that means is at the peewee and junior level, 5 to 9-year-olds, we are providing more coaching during the games when we're officiating, especially in the early parts of the season. We are a progressive development league. So in the first couple weeks of the season, we're providing a lot more coaching of the rules. We're not necessarily just turning the ball over. We don't really introduce turnovers too much until we get to week 3. Then we start to introduce turnovers in week 3, really start to go in week 4. By week 5, we really have introduced the rules, what they can and cannot do. We've honed in on that every week. By week 5, we should be ready to start calling games as normal, still providing coaching, still providing some encouragement, but we're starting to ref games like normal. So 5, 6, and 7 are regular basketball games, right? Like we're ready to rock and roll. By week 7, there shouldn't be a ton of traveling. There shouldn't be a ton of double dribbling. We should squash that by week 3. Really give yourselves week 1 and 2 to work with the players to get better on that. But by week 3 and 4, we should really start to really see kids take that next step and no longer be double dribbling, traveling, all that stuff. Rules of play, safety, I talked about this. When in doubt, sit them out for any injuries. Tip-offs, jump balls, and when do those take place? So for the Pee Wee age group, the winner of a coin toss or rock, paper, scissors will get the starting possession. The opposite team will start with the possession in the second half. So that team will get the possession for the first quarter and second, and then second quarter is just where the ball is, right? So when we stop, it'll come back into play. They switch possession at the second half. Junior and senior age groups, play starts at the beginning of the game with a jump ball. So that is junior and senior. I know juniors played on the cross court, right? So it doesn't look as normal as a basketball court. We still do a jump ball for both of those groups. The difference between Pee Wee to junior, the possession still changes at halftime, but junior and senior age groups will switch sides at halftime. So they'll be going at different baskets. That's in the junior and senior age group. So Pee Wee, we're really introducing them to everything. Juniors, when we start to introduce changes. Seniors, when we're going full go. Substitutions. Playing time is really important for us, right? We want everybody to get equal playing time. Everybody get some equal opportunities out there. So when you guys are out there, be vigilant on this. We provide I-9 Sports substitution sheets at the venue for a reason. They're in the folder at the check-in table. There's a site binder. It's an accordion folder that opens up like that. There'll be substitution sheets in there. If you know a coach has a problem with substituting players, giving equal playing time, whatever, really encourage them and give them a substitution sheet. If anybody asks, just give them a substitution sheet. We want them to utilize that to get their substitutions in without having to remember who's been in, who hasn't. And if you guys see that at the venue, be vigilant, right? Don't be afraid to step in and be like, hey, coach, we got to get Jimmy off the court. Jimmy's played the whole game. It's the third quarter, and little Timmy has sat twice already. I need him off the court, and I need Timmy's in the game. All right. Teams can substitute on any stoppage of play with your approval, but we do try to encourage them to use the breaks as we lay them out. If you communicate these things to the coaches ahead of time, makes things a lot easier. Hey, coach, we're playing 4 6-minute quarters. I will blow a whistle for a substitution break at the middle of each quarter, and then we will also have the opportunity at the end of each quarter to have a substitution as well. So plenty of opportunity to get the kids involved in the game, and that's how we'll handle substitutions. Any questions there on the substitution front? Awesome. Scoring. 2-pointers for every basket that's inside the 3-point line. The Pee Wee and junior level do not have free throws. So every basket is 2 points at the Pee Wee and junior level. When you are marking down the score on your notebook, do not mark down baskets as in like just, oh, they scored a basket, so that's 1. Mark down the number of points they've got. Do the sticks, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, dash, 1, 2, 3, 4, dash, and count them up that way. Once we get to the senior level, that is when we introduce free throws on fouls and 3-pointers. So that's where it gets a little tricky with the scoring. You'll have the free throws and the 3-pointers at the senior level. The other thing with scoring at senior level is there will be a scoreboard. So the same flip board that we use for volleyball, there's a flip board that we use for our volleyball scoring. You will use that in the senior level to keep score. Always just try to recruit a parent or a sibling to do the scoreboard. You will still keep score in your notebook, or one of you guys on the court will keep score in the notebook for senior, but they can also keep score on the scoreboard as well. Just make sure they have the correct score as the game goes on. If they shoot a 3 and they make it, throw a 3 up to the kid or the parent so they know to put the flip for 3. So make sure you're keeping an eye on feet on the 3-point line when they're taking 3-point shots. We have had that before where people have sent in video of the game and been like, hey, this was supposed to be a 3. They called it a 2. Here's the video of them behind the 3-point line. Maybe some of you laugh, but it's true. We do have some people that take this stuff very seriously. They keep stats. They take videos during the game. And I've had several people reach out to me in the past about disputing scores, etc., about things. So when you're out there, I don't say that to like put anybody on edge. I'm just saying that to be, hey, be vigilant. Make sure you're paying attention and stand by your call. If you make a call, stand by it. Just because somebody sends in a video and it doesn't agree with your call, I'm not going to be like, dude, what were you doing? You're human. I understand mistakes get made, but as long as we're following the process, we're getting into good positions, we're keeping an eye on the action, I'm not going to get mad if you miss a call. But if you're slowly getting up the court and you're making a call on an out of bounds under the basket from the other side of the court, I'm going to be like, why were you 70 feet from the ball making an out of bounds call? Of course you didn't see it. That was a guess, right? So let's make sure we're moving with action, staying on top of it, etc. Types of fouls. Everybody here has played organized basketball at some level, correct? Give me a thumbs up if you've played organized basketball at some level. So everybody put their thumbs up, which is great because that is important, right? So the same rules that you know from playing basketball are the same rules we call. Shooting fouls, non-shooting fouls, reach-ins, holdings, charge, blocking fouls, illegal screens, intentional fouls, flagrant fouls. We call them all. Now, thankfully, depending on the age groups, we don't deal with too much of this, right? But you guys need to be ready to call these fouls. So I need you, just because you were here and we went over this, does not mean you're ready to step on the court and ref tomorrow for I-9. I need you to study and look at these and ask questions if you have any, but know what it means to call a reach-in. Know what it means to call an illegal pick/screen. And coach up as we're going, right? I haven't seen a flagrant foul get called at I-9, thankfully, knock on wood. Hopefully this season we don't see one get called because it hopefully will never happen. But we need to be able to call it if it does happen, all right? So make sure you're paying attention for all that. If there's any intentional acts that are flagrant, if there's an intentional foul in a manner that is super aggressive, we will have players sit out. So that is one thing that we do. It's not just that's a flagrant foul. You keep playing intentional foul that you tried to like injure somebody, or maybe a kid wasn't happy with somebody stealing the ball from them. So they went down, they whacked their arm as hard as they could and tried to take the ball back. We'll have kids sit out for the rest of that quarter, or maybe for a whole quarter while, thinking about what happened. And coaches obviously have the ability to step in and do that themselves, but you guys need to control the action. If the game is getting physical, it's getting out of hand, people start tripping people, different things like that, you need to take control of that game from the start. Make sure you're calling the fouls, make sure you're calling things as they should be called. The violations that we call: walking and traveling, carrying or palming, double dribbles, held ball, backcourt violation, which only applies to seniors. We do not have a backcourt violation for the younger kids, although, we don't want them running all the way back into their own court. I don't think they will. And then time restriction. Time restriction is loosely enforced. We do not have if you're not under the basket doing 5 seconds, you're not doing an 8-second thing up to the court. But if we need to, we will, right? So if a kid's taking 20 seconds to inbound the ball under the hoop, that's when we got to start. Hey, you only have 5 seconds to pass it in. So try to encourage that. It's loosely enforced just because we typically do not have issues with kids inbounding the ball. But try to keep them around that 5 seconds. If you need to, if they're continually going over 5 seconds, that's when we start really honing in on that. Any questions there with the fouls, types of fouls, the violations, what we should be doing there? Obviously, anytime a violation occurs, we should be calling it. And then early on in the season, the younger age groups, we're doing it back, they're inbounding it, right? So say it's the red team commits a travel. We're going to blow the whistle. We're going to instruct little Timmy on the red team of what he did wrong and what he should have done. right? Maybe he was dribbling, he picked up the ball, and then he went to dribble again, right? That's a double dribble. Boom, we blow the whistle. All right, Timmy, that's a double dribble, right? Remember, if we pick up the ball, can we dribble the ball again? No. Okay, so what can we do? We have to pass it or shoot it, right? Okay, awesome. So I want you to do that, all right? We're going to inbound the ball again, or you're going to start play back up with a whistle, right? It's early in the season, so we can do that. Then we're gonna move them on, right? By week 3, 4, that's when we're like, all right, this is your warning. If you do it again, that's a turnover, and then you start them back up. They do it again, then it's a turnover. Now it's no longer red ball. Now it's gray ball or whatever color jersey the other team is. Any questions there with the fouls? Awesome. Making good time. We got about 12 minutes left. So forfeits. Now, any team that cannot field at least 4 players is a forfeit. So we will play 4-on-4, or they can borrow a player, and that counts as a real game. Even if they borrow a player or two, that's still a normal game, right? So as long as they have at least 4 players, it's not a forfeit. If they only have 3, it's a forfeit, and that's the way it'll be. But we always play the game. So even if they have 3 and it's a forfeit, what we'll do is we'll have both teams come together, we'll break them up, and we'll do a scrimmage. And they'll do just a scrimmage against each other. Forfeit scores are recorded as 12-0 in the score sheet. So if the Mavs are playing the Celtics and the Celtics didn't have enough players to play that week, on the score sheet, we're putting 12-0. That is also when our competition rules kick in when we get into a game. I'll get into that in a second, but 12-0 is the pinnacle score for us. 12 points deficit is an important number. So 12-0 is the forfeit score. Defenses. A legal defense will be called if a team loses possession of the ball as a result of a defensive act taking place in a restricted area. The turnover will be legal. It is an error initiated by the offensive team, and defense was not being applied in the restricted area. So that is up to your discretion. Some of that can be transition defense, right? So we don't allow full court press in the younger age groups. So when they have a turnover, they shouldn't be playing defense in the offensive zone, right? So if the Mavs are on offense and they're in their offensive zone, they're getting ready to take a shot, they turn the ball over, and then their point guard decides to play defense on the guy who just got the ball and steals it back or gets it back somehow. That is illegal defense. You'll have to call that, give the ball to the Mavs and have them go down. The Celtics can't actually get the ball there. So we want to make sure that we're staying on top of that. I hope that made sense. We're definitely not allowing transition defense. And we'll get into the defenses here in a second. As you can see with Pee Wee, we'll start first on the defensive front. But there's no transition defense in the Pee Wee junior level, okay? And in the senior level, they can play man-to-man. They can't play full court press until the 4th quarter. We'll get to that in a second, but I wanted to touch on that. Defense is these defensive violations are officials' discretion. So you guys are the ones dictating whether it is a legal defense in the transition or if it was a bad pass, right? Maybe it was just a bad pass and then, it was a turnover. That's what he gets for missing his teammate by 10 feet, right? So that's your discretion, but make sure you stand by your calls. Pee Wee division rules. We got about 10 minutes to go through the Pee Wee junior and senior rules. Pee Wee rules. Teams will play a zone defense. There will be spot markers or court markers on the court for where they should stand. Players should not extend more than 1 step away from their spot marker on defense. Again, they're not allowed to play man. It's a zone defense, so they should be typically staying in their zone, which is about 1 step off their spot marker. The first inbound pass is free, no steals. So on an inbounds pass, it cannot be stolen. Any pass after that can be stolen on the pass. Again, as I mentioned, no full court press for Pee Wees. Now, scores, coaches, and game rules. Scores are kept starting week 2. Game rules are loosely enforced and teaching moments are encouraged. If a ball is close to the line, keep it in the court of play as best as possible. No foul shots are rewarded. All fouls will result in a ball being inbounded from the sideline or under the hoop. And it's 1 coach per team is allowed on the court. So you will be on the court reffing, and there may be a coach from each team running up and down the court. Encourage them to try to stay out of the way, right? They don't need to be standing directly in the middle of the court. So when the transition game happens, they're literally in the middle of everybody. Try to have them off to the side a little bit, but they're allowed to be up on the court moving with their team. Next, we have our competition mercy rules. The competition rules go into effect when a team is leading by 12 plus points. A 5-pass rule should go into effect for the offensive team if they are up by 12 points. If at any point the team closes the gap within 12, so they go, say the Celtics are up by 12 against the Mavs, we'll use that again, and the Mavs score enough baskets to bring the deficit within 11, there's no longer a 5-pass rule. The competition rules go out of effect, right? So that it's only in effect if they're up by 12 or more points. The other competition rule that can come into play at this level is not necessarily a competition rule as much as it's a team rule, right? If you have a kid that is better than everybody else, that's great. We love having those kids in our program. We know they're going to make baskets and score points and have a good time. They shouldn't be shooting the ball 37 times a game. I don't want to hear that one kid of a 5-year-old in the 5 and 6-year-old division scored 20 points, right? That's never going to happen. Shouldn't happen, really. It's a team game. They should be moving the ball around. There's a lot of beginner to intermediate players, and so we might have some good players. We want to encourage them to round out their game. Michael Jordan passed the ball. Michael Jordan rebounded the ball. Michael Jordan played defense, right? Michael Jordan did not just shoot the ball and say, forget all of you other people on the court. I'm only shooting the ball every time down the court. Don't look at me. I'm not passing the ball, right? So if a kid scores a ton and he's shooting a lot, encourage him to pass or her to pass, right? They get a bunch of points, great. Encourage them to pass. If it gets to a point where you need to institute a pass rule for them, do that. You can no longer shoot. We have this rule in place for a reason. If a kid has like 15 points and the team is winning 17-10, right? And the one kid has 15 points. At that point, and it's the second quarter, third quarter, whatever it is, hey, Jimmy, here's what I want you to do, buddy. I want you to work on passing the rest of the game, all right? If you score another basket before the fourth quarter, that basket doesn't count. It's a turnover. So work on getting your teammates the ball, work on getting them good shot attempts. You did a great job. You scored 15 points. That's awesome. I love that. But let's work on some passing now, right? And then we go from there. It doesn't have to be for the entire game. It can just be for a quarter. We just want them to round it out. You might not understand what I'm saying right now. You will the first time you step on a court and you see the kid that does it. We do have kids that do it just because they're much more advanced than everybody else. But we still want them to work on passing and rounding out their game, not just going out there and shooting 40 shots a game. Now, jumping into juniors. Some nuances change, but a lot of it is very similar to the Pee Wee. Teams play zone defense here. Defenses may not extend more than one step away from their spot markers. No steals except off the pass. No full court press. Same sort of steps as we just talked about with juniors. Or with the Pee Wee, sorry. Scoring, coaches, game rules. Scores kept week 2. Game rules are enforced. And teaching moments are delivered by coach and referee. Coaches are not allowed on the court at this point, but are allowed to walk the sidelines. So we want to try to encourage coaches to stay off the court in the junior levels. They're out of the way. Substitutions should be made at the mid-court line. Some venues, it's a little difficult depending on where they sit, how small the venue is. So that's loosely enforced, but we do want to encourage them to try to do, normal basketball things. You substitute at the midcourt line. It's a normal thing. Coaches are walking up and down the sideline. That's a normal thing. So let's try to have that. Same thing with the competition rules for Pee Wee. Take effect with junior. 5-pass rules up by 12, all that good stuff. The passing rule for kids that are taking a ton of shots without passing the ball to their teammates or working other people in. We always want to try to work kids into the action, right? If you see a player that has not touched the ball for most of that quarter, have them bring the ball up. Have them work the ball to them. Have them get involved, right? Everybody should be getting involved in all of this. Last but not least, we'll jump into the senior division here. This is where everything changes, right? We go to full court. We're starting to use the bigger basketball. It's 10-foot hoops instead of 8 or 9. Now we can play man-to-man or zone defense. Starting week 3, teams made full court press in the fourth quarter. The reason we do that is so that way they can kind of get an understanding for it before we hit week 3. And in junior, actually, they're supposed to be able to play man defense starting week 3 as well. So they do play zone, but they move to man. So junior is where we change to the man-to-man. Starting week 3, they can play zone or man-to-man in the fourth quarter. That starts week 3. In the senior level, starting week 3 is when they can move from man to the full court press in the fourth quarter, unless they're up by 12. Do you guys see that progression there? So in Pee Wee, it's zone the whole season. In junior, it's zone until week 3. Then they can play man in the fourth quarter. In senior, it's zone or man. And then in week 3, they can introduce the full court press as long as they're not up by 12. If at any point they go up by 12, they can no longer full court press in the fourth quarter. Teams may steal off the dribble in the senior division unless they are up by 12. So they're playing man, they can steal off the dribble unless they're up by 12. Scores, coaches, and game rule. Anybody have any questions on the defensive front for either Pee Wee, junior, or senior, or just any questions on senior defense? Awesome. So move into the scores, coaches, game rules. Score starts week 2. We don't keep score week 1. That's more of a practice week for us to work on practicing keeping score. We don't keep official score week until week 2. Each player is allowed 5 fouls at the senior level. I know what you're going to say. How do we keep track of fouls if all we got is a little notebook and we might know their names, we might not. They're all just wearing random numbers. Really, that's a loosely enforced thing. When it comes into play with the 5 fouls is middle to end of the season where you've seen the same teams. You start to know the players' names. You know what's going on. And if you see a kid fouling continuously, if you have a kid that you've had to whistle for 4 fouls and it's the second quarter and you know they've been fouling like crazy, start letting them know by the third foul, hey, buddy, you can only foul 5 times in a game. And then you're out of the game, right? You've already fouled 3 times. I don't want to whistle you for another foul. So keep your hands up on defense. I don't want you slapping anybody or anything else like that, all right? Trying to steal the ball. So that 5th foul, it's loosely enforced. But if a kid is fouling a ton, we will have to pull them out of the game. Game rules are enforced and teaching moments are delivered by the coach at the senior level typically. There will be 2 staff usually for senior games. So you'll be working with somebody else. And when you are, you'll be delivering just the rules, right? You'll be officiating the game. You're providing a little bit of coaching moment to provide some instruction for the kids that need it. But typically you'll see that the kids understand the flow of the game and you are more so officiating the game. The coaches have done a lot of the coaching. Coaches are not allowed on the court, but are allowed to walk the sidelines. And then last but not least, the competition rules. The way the competition rules change for the senior division, a 5-pass rule goes into effect if they're up by 12 points. No stealing off the dribble if they're up by 12 points. No full court press if they're up by 12 points. And then if they have anybody who is just going off, we'll encourage them to start passing, working the ball around. Typically, we don't see that too much in the senior division because we do try to balance the rosters as best as possible. But if you do start to see that where a kid just is absolutely phenomenally more better than everybody else and has scored a ton of points, their team's up by 15, that's when we try to start getting that person to pass a little bit before they start shooting again. And that is all of our senior basketball rules.